Okay, so I want to talk about another important concept when writing ifs, and that is testing for more than two possibilities. For example, if you wanted to test for a particular username, you could have if username equals Jim, and then you could have an else to catch the other possibility. So if in the else structure allows for one of two possibilities. But there's going to be times where you need to test for 3, 4, 5 different possibilities. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's say the user is going to type in a state, and these states are kind of arbitrary, but let's say we want to test for some different states. Let's write our first if, and then we'll get more into it. So let's say we want to check and see if the state equals Maryland or something. So we'll say if state variable equals, it's a string, so we'll put the value inside quotes there. If state equals Maryland, and then we'll just echo a message back out. I guess I'll just echo northeast or something. So with an if else, let's try this. We can test for that, and then if we did an else, it would catch all others. But suppose we wanted to catch Florida or Arizona or some other state. So let's write what's called an else if for that. So the way else if works, again, it should be paired with an if. It's going to be else if, all lowercase, all together, no spaces. And otherwise, it's just like an if. We need a comparison in here. So we could say if state equals, let's try New Mexico or something. Oops. And we'll echo something different here. Let's give it a try, and then we'll talk about the logic of it. Let's see. So now we got two different cases. So the else if, basically, you could essentially copy your if. It's going to be else if, parentheses, some type of comparison inside there, and then curly brackets. So what that's going to allow us to do is, let's put an else down here, allows for basically three possibilities instead of just an if and an else. Now we've got this case, and then the else would catch others. So let's put unknown region or something down here, just so it'll show that it'll catch others. So if we put California, we didn't test for that, should get caught in the else. So that's a way of getting beyond the fact where if you do an if and an else, it's going to be one or the other. Now we've got three different possibilities, an if, an else if, and then often it's good measure to still have an else to catch other things, unexpected things, etc. So other than the fact that you've got an else here, it looks just like an if statement. So it's always going to start with an if, and you can have as many else if tests as you want separately, and then the last thing is always going to be an else if you decide to include one. And like I said, the syntax for the else if, all lowercase else if, then it's just like the if. You've got your parentheses, no semicolon, you got your curly brackets, and you have some type of comparison in here. Let's try one more example. Let's try one with a number range. So let's say we want to test for numbers from, or let's say we want to test for ages. So let's change this to an age variable. And we want to say catch everybody that's over the age of 65. So let's write an if for that. they're not over 65, maybe we'll want to catch the ones that are over the age of 21. So we can write an ELSEIF for that. And then if we wanted, we could even write another else if for, see if they're over 16 or something. And I'll walk through this logic in just a moment because it is important to understand the way these ifs are going to be tested. And let's put an else at the bottom. So we've got if age greater than 65, we'll have one thing happen. If it doesn't pass that, we've got an else if for age greater than or equal to 21. And we have another else if for age greater than or equal to 16, and then we have an else at the bottom. Let's print out some messages here. So the other thing to understand about this logic is how it's going to be tested. So let's say retiree or something up here. Let's just put some different messages here. Let's see, old drinking age. And this is driving age. And maybe this is grade school or something lower, whatever. Let's give this a try and then we'll talk about the logic of it. Let's see what message we get if we put in 17. Shouldn't be drinking age, should be driving age. So again, the structure is going to be always going to start with an if, and you can have as many else ifs as you want to test for different scenarios. And then if you want, you could have an else at the end to catch all the others. The else isn't necessary, but it always has to start with if. Else ifs will come next, and if you do have an else, that'll come at the end. The ifs and the else ifs should always have parentheses and some type of comparison that it's testing, and the else should never have any comparison after it because it's going to catch everything. So the way this is going to work is if you wrote your if statement this way, it's always going to test this, and if it doesn't pass, it'll test the next one. So if we put in a value of 75, we're just going to see that retiree message, and we're not going to see any of the others. So 75 is greater than 21, but it got caught by the first test, and it just did what was here. So that's how it's going to walk through your code and test it. It's going to say, is age greater than 65? If it's not, it'll test the next one. Well, is it greater than 21? If it is, it'll fall in there. If it's not greater than 21, it'll test the next one. So if we were to put in the value of 30, we see the drinking message because it tested this and it didn't pass. It tested this and it is greater than 21, so we saw that message. And it doesn't test anything below, but whenever it falls into one of these, that's all it's going to test. So if it falls into this one, it's not going to go test the else if or anything else that belongs to this if else structure.